Dinner had just reached its warmest moment when my husband and the woman I'd called my closest friend for 8 years both slipped away from the table. I searched the corridor for them for barely a minute before a strange line of text scrolled across my vision, like a comment feed floating over a live stream. One only I could see. Phew. Good thing the leading man managed to pull the leading lady out of the bathroom and into the walk-in freezer before anyone saw them. Shame they're not exactly dressed. If the background character finds them now, it's over. I went cold, and it had nothing to do with the freezer. So, my husband Julian was standing in a walk-in freezer holding my best friend, Marnie, against his chest. And I was the background character. I walked toward the freezer door. A woman stepped into my path. Rosalind, the restaurant's owner. "I'm sorry, that's a staff storage area. Guests aren't permitted back there." The feed in my head kept scrolling, delighted. Close call. If the background character had gotten past her, the leading pair would have been caught. Don't worry, once she clears off, they can slip out again. The phrase, "they can slip out again," landed on me like a slap, so I changed my plan. "Actually," I said, "I'd like to move to a table right out here." Rosalind blinked. The feed practically screamed. Wait. What? Why is the background character sitting down? How is anyone supposed to sneak out of the freezer if she's parked in the middle of the dining room? I pulled my attention back from the words only I could see and gave Rosalind the calmest smile I owned. Are they really so shocked that I'd like a proper meal? I think I'll eat slowly tonight. I rather owe it to the two people currently keeping each other warm in your freezer. I knew Rosalind vaguely. I'd dined here a handful of times, but I'd never once guessed she and Marnie were close enough for this. Now here she was, a human shield for my husband's affair. Why not, Rosalind? I kept my voice light. That private room got stuffy. I'd like to sit out here and I'll take another seafood platter, plus quite a bit more. 2 crates of beer, a dozen plates of fried chicken wings, 100 lamb skewers, 20 sliders, 50 baked clams. I barely touched my food in there. Now I've got an appetite. Rosalind went speechless for a beat, then, out of pure habit, reached for her order pad. While she scribbled, I dialed my friends in the private room. Everyone, come out. We're moving to the big table by the window. I've just ordered enough food to sink a ship. Cheering erupted on the other end. Wait, seriously? All of that? This just turned into an actual event. Grab my coat on your way, would you? They filed out laughing, and I gestured to the long table. Eat up. Nobody's leaving until we're properly stuffed. Rosalind stood frozen, order pad in hand, clearly torn between throwing us out and rushing the kitchen. Her eyes kept darting toward the freezer corridor. Then, after a pause too long to be casual, "Actually, we're out of stock on most of that. I'm afraid we can't fulfill the order. Perhaps it's best if you all head home for the evening." The feed adored her for it. The best friend character is incredible. She's not even thinking about the money, just protecting the leads. That order was easily 800 pounds. That's loyalty. The background character is pure poison, honestly, trying to freeze our leads to death. Not happening. If she and her crowd don't clear out, they really will freeze in there. It's 23 degrees Fahrenheit in that freezer, the feed went on, almost gleeful with worry. No clothes. They won't last an hour. How Rosalind must have wished the same thing. She wanted us gone so badly, but we'd already dragged half of our unfinished courses out from the private room with us. My friend Desmond spoke up first. "Hang on, Rosalind. That's not on. We haven't even finished round one and you're trying to clear the table? We're adding to the bill here. You're running a business. You can't just turn away paying customers. Panic flickered across her face. You've misunderstood. I'm not trying to rush anyone out. We've simply run short on those particular ingredients tonight. I stood and pointed past her shoulder, through the glass-fronted display case where rows of meat, shellfish, and vegetables sat stacked in perfect gleaming order. Rosalind, everything we ordered is sitting right there behind the glass. How exactly are you out? Just have the kitchen prepare it. And I've rung a few more people. They'll likely be ordering as well. Rosalind turned to Stone. More people are coming? Yes. I held up my phone, smiling. I've called my mother-in-law and her two closest friends. They adore your cooking, and they're famously enthusiastic talkers. Treat them well tonight, and you'll have free advertising for a year. The feed exploded. No, no, no. The mother-in-law is coming? If she sees this, the whole romance is finished. Even though she quietly prefers the leading lady to the background character, if she catches them cheating in front of her own friends, there's no saving that relationship now. Forget the romance. If the background character and her lot don't leave, our leads are going to freeze. Look at them shivering. There's frost on her eyelashes. Don't worry. The best friend character will fix this. She always does. Will she? I wondered, swallowing something bitter. I intended to watch exactly how she planned to manage that. Rosalind snapped out of her daze. Since the "we're out of stock" line hadn't worked, she reached for another. The kitchen's just told me we're out of gas. The stoves won't light. If you'd still like to eat, you'll need to find another restaurant. Anger flared clean and sharp. I walked straight to the kitchen pass and saw the chef still working, the line still humming with orders. Right on cue, the restaurant's speaker chimed. Your online order has been accepted. I looked back at her. Rosalind, you are behaving very strangely tonight. Why are you so desperate to get us out the door? Is there something back there you'd rather I not see? Your kitchen is clearly still cooking, and I can see 2 spare gas canisters against that wall from here. This isn't a corner shop. You don't run out of fuel. Give me a straight answer right now, or I start posting the video I've already recorded and let the internet decide what's going on. Rosalind looked ready to faint. Damn it, the feed muttered, all fury now. I want to march in there and slap the background character myself. Why is she going after the best friend like this? The leading lady's too cold to even speak anymore. If he wasn't holding her up, she'd have collapsed by now. It's fine. If they survive tonight, this near-death ordeal will only bring them closer. Guaranteed happy ending. Happy ending? Absolutely not. Not on my watch. My friends had already begun loudly discussing formal complaints and online reviews. With nowhere left to retreat, Rosalind finally gave up the menu and backed toward the kitchen. Watching her defeated walk gave me one clean second of satisfaction, quickly swallowed by fury again. I had been nothing but good to Marnie. When she was out of work, I got her a position at Julian's firm. When she needed somewhere to live, I had Julian arrange a company flat for her. I never once left her out of a single dinner, holiday, or long weekend, and this was her answer to it. But it takes 2 people to build a betrayal like this. Julian hadn't just strayed, he'd done it in a walk-in freezer with half our friend group 2 rooms away. If they wanted a thrill that badly, I'd give them a genuine one. I would keep them locked in that cold, long enough for whatever they had to develop proper frostbite. A sharp voice cut through the dining room. My mother-in-law, Vivian, swept in with her 2 closest friends trailing behind her, all three dressed as though they'd come to inspect a crime scene and were quietly disappointed by how tidy it looked. Eleanor. Unbelievable. Out here again, spending my son's money on some enormous dinner, dragging half of London along with you. I lifted my glass. Perfect timing. Your son's gone missing, and the owner here won't let me check the freezer. Her expression froze solid. The two women behind her leaned forward like sharks catching blood in the water. The freezer, one whispered. At dinner. That's not a hiding spot. That's a headline. The floating feed panicked in full. No, 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 she's here. If she sees them, the whole romance route just died. Someone stop this, please. Rosalind looked as though she wanted to climb inside a stockpot and pull the lid shut. Vivian recovered fast. This is absurd. Julian is likely on a business call. Then ring him. Her eyes narrowed. I don't need lessons on how to reach my own son. Good. Then ring him. She dialed. For 1 second, nothing. Then, faint, muffled, unmistakably cheerful, a ringtone sounded from the corridor behind the kitchen. Every head at the table turned at once. Desmond raised an eyebrow. Unless the prawns learn to use a mobile, I think we've found him. Vivian's face changed completely. Rosalind lunged forward. That could be any phone. Staff leave them everywhere. We're very busy tonight. Then let us check. Absolutely not. That area is restricted. I counted on my fingers. 10 minutes ago it was full of stock. Then it was empty. Then it had no gas. Now it's suddenly full of staff phones. Pick one story, Rosalind. You're making the menu longer than the actual meal. My friends burst out laughing. One of Vivian's friends sat down uninvited. I'd like some tea. The other followed. And dessert. I can't process adultery on an empty stomach. Vivian stayed on her feet, but her voice had lost its certainty. Rosalind, open the door. Ma'am, I respect you, but I can't allow guests back there. She isn't asking as a guest. I set my phone on the table, still recording. She's asking as the mother of the missing man, whose ringtone is currently singing from your freezer. The feed lost all composure. Her lips are turning blue. He's trying to cover her with his own arms. So romantic. It is not romantic. He's shaking too hard to even speak. Why is the background character ordering tea? I smiled at the words no one else could see. Rosalind, while you decide which version of tonight you'd like to go with, bring the dessert menu, would you? Chocolate fondant, cheesecake, tea for our guests, coffee for Desmond, another round of beer, and something hot. Soup, maybe. Desmond lifted one finger. Extra hot. This place seems to be running a theme tonight. Vivian finally sat, tugged down by both her friends. Sit, one murmured. A mother sees more sitting down. Rosalind tried once more. Please, everyone, I'll comp the whole bill. Go home, no charge. I'll call it a night on the house. Desmond clutched his chest. Rosalind, I'm touched, but I don't want free food. I want an ending. I picked up my phone and dialed emergency services. Rosalind lunged half a step forward. What are you doing? I'm not breaking into your freezer, Rosalind. I'm opening a case. The line connected. I kept my voice level. There may be 2 people trapped inside a walk-in freezer at a restaurant in Marylebone. The owner is refusing to let anyone check, and a missing man's phone is currently ringing from inside. Please send someone. Rosalind went white. I ended the call and set the phone down. Now, we wait. Legally. Desmond raised his glass. I've genuinely never seen someone weaponize a dinner reservation before. The kitchen had no choice after that. Food began arriving properly, because Rosalind could no longer pretend the stoves were dead while steam rolled out of the pass behind her. Wings appeared, soup appeared, tea appeared. The table filled with plates and glasses and an anticipation usually reserved for weddings and public hangings. I ate slowly. The soup, annoyingly, was very good. The feed flickered on. He's losing feeling in his fingers. She's crying, says she can't feel her hands anymore. This ordeal will only strengthen their bond if they make it out. Why is the background character eating soup right now? Because betrayal apparently makes people hungry in strange ways. Vivian rang Julian again. The ringtone sang once more from the back. This time even the chef paused mid-motion. One of Vivian's friends went very still over her teacup. "You heard that?" "I heard it." "That ringtone," the other said solemnly, "is now evidence." Rosalind wiped her forehead. "Perhaps someone simply dropped their phone." Desmond pointed a chicken bone toward the corridor. "A very naked ghost, apparently." The first officer arrived a few minutes later, alongside 2 paramedics and a health inspector, who looked deeply unimpressed to have been pulled off a Friday night for this. I stood before Rosalind could speak. "That corridor leads to the walk-in freezer. This woman blocked me from checking it after my husband and my closest friend disappeared. First, she claimed the kitchen was out of stock, while the display case sat full. Then she claimed there was no gas, while the kitchen kept cooking behind her. Then my mother-in-law rang my husband, and his phone rang from that direction." Desmond lifted his own phone. "I have video." 3 more friends raised theirs. Vivian's 2 companions raised theirs with the quiet pride of women who'd been waiting their entire lives for a night like this. Rosalind's voice thinned to nearly nothing. "This is a misunderstanding." The inspector looked at her. "Open the freezer." "I can't." "Why not?" She said nothing. The room leaned in as one. "Careful, Rosalind," I said. "Whatever the next lie is, it has to match the starters." The officer moved past her. The key, it turned out, had been sitting behind the counter the whole time. The chef quietly pointed it out the moment no one was watching him. Poor man looked like he'd decided unemployment sounded better than being an accessory to freezer infidelity. The feed in my head had gone nearly unreadable. Door opening in 30 seconds. Romance route destabilizing. Witness count too high. Female lead's tears frozen solid. Retry later. Male lead's charm currently unavailable due to shivering. The officer turned the key. Cold air rolled out first, thick with fog. For a moment, everyone in the room could see nothing else. Then, it thinned. Julian and Marnie were crouched between shelves of shellfish crates and vegetable boxes, wrapped in a torn plastic tablecloth and a couple of stolen kitchen towels. His hair was stiff with frost. Her mascara had run so badly, she resembled a raccoon mid-custody battle. Not fully exposed, thankfully, but exposed enough. A paramedic stepped in at once with blankets. Out, slowly. Julian tried to stand and slipped immediately on a patch of ice. Desmond murmured, "The leading man has entered slapstick mode." Marnie clung to a shelf, lips trembling. "Eleanor, save your breath. Looks like you'll need it." Julian stumbled out first, wrapped in a foil blanket, face pale, lips blue at the edges, eyes darting between me, his mother, and 2 aunties recording like seasoned war correspondents. "Mum!" Vivian did not move. Marnie came out behind him, shaking so hard the foil crinkled. Her eyes found mine and filled instantly with tears. The feed tried gamely to keep up. The leading lady looks so pitiful. Someone protect her. Wait, why is the room laughing? This isn't the rescue atmosphere we were promised. One of Vivian's friends murmured, I've seen scandals before, but never one that came pre-chilled. The other nodded. At least it stayed fresh. Julian swallowed. It's not what it looks like. The entire restaurant groaned as one. Even the paramedic looked tired. I folded my arms. Relax, Julian. Everyone already knows it's not what it looks like. It's worse. He clutched the blanket tighter. We got locked in. By accident. Without clothes. His mouth opened, then closed. Desmond scratched his jaw. I've had some bad dates in my time, but I've never once misplaced my trousers in a seafood freezer. Someone at the next table snorted. Laughter spread through the whole room like fire through dry grass. Julian's face burned red under the silver foil. Marnie began crying harder. Eleanor, please, I can explain. Julian was helping me. We hid because people would misunderstand. Rosalind stood frozen, clearly out of excuses. I looked at Marnie properly for the first time all evening. This woman had eaten at my table for 8 years, worn dresses I'd complimented, cried on my sofa about being unemployed, and accepted every scrap of kindness I'd offered her. Now she stood wrapped in kitchen foil like a leftover, asking me to believe she'd simply lost her way into my husband's arms. Marnie, I gave you a job, a flat, and a seat at every table I ever sat at. You chose my husband and a freezer instead. Don't ask me for warmth now. Her sob caught in her throat. The feed flickered weakly. Betrayal from a best friend character is apparently harder to write around than expected. Error. Vivian rose slowly. The room quieted. She looked Julian over, head to toe, then Marnie, then the freezer, then Rosalind. Finally, she pressed one hand to her forehead. I came here tonight to scold my daughter-in-law for spending too much on dinner. I did not come here to find my son hiding in a freezer like discounted meat. One of her friends slapped the table. Exactly right. The other pointed at Julian, still badly wrapped in foil. Buy one, get one free, apparently. Julian's face crumpled. Mum, please, not here. Where would you prefer? Should I book you the freezer as a private dining room? Desmond choked on his beer. Vivian turned fully to face her son. I raised a son, not a discount frozen meal deal. The whole restaurant lost control laughing. Even I nearly did. Almost. Julian looked at me then, with the same helplessness he'd probably planned to use on his mother. Eleanor, please, let's talk at home. Home. My voice came out colder than the freezer behind him. The warm place you left, to hide with my best friend between the prawns and the lettuce? He flinched. Rosalind tried to edge backward. The health inspector stopped her cold. Not so fast. I turned my phone around and played it all. Rosalind blocking the corridor. Rosalind claiming no stock. Rosalind claiming no gas. Rosalind sweating every time the freezer came up. The inspector's expression darkened considerably. The officer turned to her. Were you aware they were in there the whole time? Rosalind's lips shook. I was trying to avoid a scene. Marnie begged me. She said it would ruin her life if anyone found out. Marnie's head snapped up. Rosalind, you told me 5 minutes. You told me Eleanor would just leave. Julian groaned. Stop talking. Both of you. Desmond raised his glass. Please don't stop. Best table service we've had all year. Too late. The officer was already writing. By the time Julian and Marnie were cleared to leave with instructions to keep warm, the videos had already made their way around 3 separate group chats. Someone posted a photo captioned, "When the affair runs hot, but the storage runs cold." Within the hour, Rosalind's restaurant had a new name online. The Freezer Affair. Cold storage cheaters. Came for dinner, stayed for the rescue. The feed howled through it all. Why is everyone calling him Freezer Boy? Why is the leading lady trending under Seafood Mistress? Please reset. Please reset. There was no reset coming. Julian tried to take my arm outside on the pavement. I stepped back before he could reach me. Something ugly flashed across Marnie's face before she forced fresh tears. "Julian, I'm cold." He looked between the two of us. For the first time all night, he actually hesitated. I laughed, quiet and disbelieving. Remarkable. The romance survived actual frostbite, but not one single choice in a car park. Marnie's mouth twisted. Julian reached for me again. "Eleanor, it was a mistake." Marnie went rigid. "A mistake?" Her voice cracked wide open. "You told me you loved me." Julian's expression changed instantly. "Marnie, not now. You said you were only still with Eleanor because divorce was complicated." My friends went quiet. Vivian stared, unmoving. "You said she was cold, that she cared more about looking composed than actually loving you." Desmond muttered. Bold statement, coming from a man currently thawing out in a car park. Marnie rounded on Julian, shaking now with fury rather than cold. "You rented me that flat. You got me the position at the firm. You told me Eleanor would never leave you anyway, so none of it mattered. Every word out of your mouth was a gift, Julian. A filthy, painful, extremely useful gift." I turned to Desmond. "Still recording?" "I was born for this exact evening." Julian noticed the phone and lunged for it. Vivian stepped bodily in front of him. "Touch that phone, and I will forget I ever gave birth to you." He stopped. By the time I got home that night, I had video from 6 separate angles. Rosalind's lies on record, Marnie's car park confession, Julian's mother as a witness, and half a restaurant willing to swear under oath that they'd watched my husband and my best friend get rescued from a walk-in freezer like badly stored leftovers. Julian tried to follow me into the car. I told the driver to lock the doors. He slapped the window once, panic finally beating out shame. "Eleanor, please don't do this." I lowered the window 2 inches. "You did this. I only ordered dinner." Then I closed it. The flat felt different that night. Not emptier, cleaner. I walked through every room with my phone in hand, photographing his wardrobe, our documents, the drawer of receipts, the company housing paperwork, the messages I'd ignored for months because trusting someone is always easier than investigating them. By dawn, I had enough to hand a divorce solicitor. By breakfast, Desmond arrived with coffee and 3 flash drives. "You don't need a leading man tonight. You need witnesses, and you've already got us." One drive was labeled "Freezer Boy, Final Cut." "My contribution to justice," he said, and I laughed properly for the first time since dinner had started. My phone buzzed. "Vivian, I won't lie for him." A second message followed. "I was wrong about a great many things. This is not an apology yet. It's a statement of fact. Proud, difficult, endlessly image-conscious, and still, somehow, less disappointing than her own son." Julian arrived at noon looking dreadful, hair a mess, lips still cracked from the cold, carrying flowers, which was almost funny given where he'd spent the previous evening. I opened the door only because Desmond sat behind me, phone already recording. Julian saw him. Can we speak privately? No. Eleanor, I'm your husband. Temporarily. His face broke slightly. It was a mistake. Marnie seduced me. I was confused. We'd been distant. She made me feel needed. Did she also seduce you into renting her a flat? His jaw tightened. Into getting her a job at your own firm? Eleanor. Into taking her to Rosalind's restaurant and losing your clothes in the freezer? His shoulders sagged. I almost died in there last night. No. You got cold and embarrassed and caught. You kept yourselves in there. I'm the one who sat in a restaurant while my husband vanished. I'm the one who called for help. Rosalind is the one who knew and lied for you. You are the one who hid. He stepped closer, eyes red. You went too far. Something in me settled, very quietly. You didn't freeze because I left you in there, Julian. You froze because every warm place you ever had, you betrayed first. He covered his face. I'll cut Marnie off completely. End all of it. We can move past this. I set the divorce papers on the side table by the door. His eyes dropped to them. No. Eleanor, I love you. You loved having me waiting outside a door while you kept someone else warm with both hands. His knees bent just slightly before he caught himself on the wall. Desmond shifted, ready to stand. Julian noticed and straightened. He still had enough pride left not to kneel in front of an audience. That particular dignity wouldn't last much longer. Marnie came that afternoon. She cried in the lobby until the doorman rang up to warn me. I nearly refused to go down, but some endings a person really ought to see with her own eyes. She stood beside a suitcase, wrapped in a long coat and something closer to panic than sadness. Eleanor, please. I've been suspended from the firm. They're reviewing the flat's lease. Julian won't answer my calls. Rosalind's blocked me. I've got nowhere to go. I gave you a home once. You used it to learn the floor plan of my marriage. She flinched. We were friends. I was your friend. You were my very expensive lesson. Her lips trembled. You're being cruel. I was kind first. You liked that version of me considerably less. I made a mistake, Eleanor. You wanted to be the leading lady so badly. Congratulations, Marnie. Every tragedy needs exactly one. Her tears finally looked real, not because I'd wounded her, but because the world had simply stopped applauding for it. She reached for my sleeve. I stepped back before her fingers touched me. Rosalind lasted 4 days before posting a public statement calling the whole incident a misunderstanding, insisting she'd only been protecting her guests' privacy. The comments tore her apart within the hour. Concern for privacy? They were hiding in the lettuce. You lied about running out of gas while the grill was still lit behind you. Health inspectors visited twice in a single week. A temporary closure notice went up on the door. Staff interviews leaked. Someone claimed Rosalind had promised Marnie she could keep the whole thing quiet. Quietly creating an international incident with a walk-in freezer was, in my view, not a particularly strong business strategy. Desmond sent me a photo of the closure notice. Someone had taped a handwritten card beneath it. Try our signature dish. Consequences. Served at -5 degrees. Congratulations, Desmond wrote. Rosalind's finally got herself a signature dish. Rosalind turned on Marnie not long after, in a voice message that somehow found its way to half of London. I risked my entire restaurant for you. You told me Eleanor would leave on her own. Now I'm the villain and you're crying online for sympathy. Marnie's reply was just as ugly. You told me you could handle Eleanor. You're the one who actually locked that freezer. My solicitor loved that particular word. The divorce meeting itself didn't take long. It didn't need to. Julian arrived with dark circles under his eyes and a solicitor who clearly wished he were anywhere else on earth. I arrived with mine, Desmond's videos, the restaurant footage, Rosalind's voice message, Marnie's car park confession, the flat's lease, the company housing paperwork, gift receipts, and a signed statement from Vivian herself. Julian tried calling it emotional confusion. My solicitor played the freezer video, then laid out the lease dates, Marnie's employment paperwork, and every payment record in order. Julian's solicitor stopped talking for quite a while after that. Julian leaned forward. "Do you really want to do this in front of strangers, Eleanor? You did it in front of the seafood." Desmond coughed into his fist. "Didn't need revenge served cold. You walked into the freezer and plated yourself, mate." That was the moment his solicitor asked for a short break. By the end of it, Julian lost considerably more than he'd expected. Assets split sharply against him. Every expense traceable to Marnie counted double. The firm opened an internal review into the housing arrangement he couldn't explain away. Friends stopped inviting him anywhere, because no one wanted to become a footnote in his sequel. His mother refused to fund any further fight on his behalf. At the family meeting he arranged to pressure me into reconciling, Vivian sat across from him, entirely unmoved. "You embarrassed me in front of my friends, my daughter-in-law, and half a restaurant. I could forgive foolishness, Julian. I cannot forgive stupidity served cold. Mum, I'm your son. You were my son before you became a menu item." He looked around the table for support and found precisely none. That was the moment he finally cried. From loneliness, not remorse. The feed followed me through those weeks, like a broken piece of software trying endlessly to reboot. The leading man can still win her back. The leading lady only needs to cry harder. Why is the mother-in-law siding with the background character? Why are the witnesses all on her side? Plot route unstable. Attempting correction. Correction failed. Marnie tried online sympathy next, posting a photo of her hand around a teacup with the caption, "Sometimes women hurt women instead of listening." I hope one day she understands I was lonely too. The comments did not go the way she'd hoped. "Were you lonely in the freezer? She gave you a job, a flat, a seat at her table. You don't get to borrow someone's husband because you were bored." She deleted the post within 9 minutes. Her termination from the firm followed almost immediately after. The lease on the flat ended the day Julian stopped paying for it, and the company finally admitted it had never really been a staff dormitory at all. Rosalind blocked her number. Julian stopped answering whenever she asked for money. The leading lady discovered, rather quickly, that romance without someone else covering the rent was mostly just logistics. When she later screamed in the lobby of his new office that he'd once promised to marry her, he called security and told them she was unwell. She screamed back that he'd hidden in a freezer first. The staff pretended not to film it. Of course they filmed it. The internet, by then, had settled on a final name for the whole affair: the Great Defrosting. By the time the divorce was finalized, Julian had become a punchline attached to a settlement agreement. He was waiting outside the courthouse on a bright, ordinary morning, thinner than before, in a dark coat, eyes red. Whatever arrogance he'd had left finally scraped down to bone. "Eleanor." I kept walking. He stepped directly into my path. Desmond stopped beside me. This time Julian didn't even acknowledge him. "I was wrong." "Yes." "I thought you'd never actually leave." "Yes." Marnie meant nothing. But that isn't the defense you think it is, Julian. His voice cracked. I genuinely thought I might die in there. And all I could think about, the entire time, was you. I looked at him for a long moment. That's precisely the problem. You only valued warmth after you'd already chosen the freezer. He covered his face, shoulders shaking. I love you. No. You loved the memory of having someone loyal, before everyone else found out you didn't deserve her. Eleanor, please. He went down to his knees, right there on the courthouse steps. People turned. Phones came up. Of course they did. He'd taught every one of us the value of a witness. I bent slightly, just enough for only him to hear it. You don't get a second chance, Julian. Not when your first scandal came pre-chilled. Then I straightened and walked away. The feed flickered violently one last time. Male lead kneeling detected. Background character should forgive him now. Background character is leaving. Background character is leaving. Error. Error. Background character role. Not found. For the first time since that dinner, the words went quiet. Not gone completely. Just still. Like an audience finally realizing they'd spent the whole story watching the wrong woman. Marnie found me once more, a week later, outside a small restaurant Desmond had picked for our first properly post-divorce dinner. My actual friends were already inside, arguing over whether ordering seafood tonight was insensitive or simply hilarious. Marnie stood by the entrance, thinner, tired, dragging a suitcase with one broken wheel. Eleanor. I didn't sigh. She hadn't earned that much breath from me. Please, we were friends. No, Marnie, I was your friend. You were my very expensive lesson. Her eyes filled. I have nowhere to go. You said that before. It worked better when I didn't know exactly where you'd been. I lost everything. You lost what I gave you. Her lips trembled. Julian abandoned me. He abandoned his wife first. You thought that part was romantic. She looked down at the pavement. I reached for the restaurant door. Eleanor, please just tell me what to do now. I paused, half-turned. Start by staying out of freezers and out of other women's marriages. Then I went inside. Desmond stood and raised both hands like a stage announcer. She survived the freezer saga. My friends cheered. Someone had already ordered wings. Someone else had ordered soup, extra hot. The table was warm and loud and entirely full of people who'd never once needed betrayal to become interesting. Desmond slid a glass toward me. You don't need a leading man tonight. You need witnesses, and you've already got us. I raised the glass. Outside the window, Marnie stood a moment longer, then turned and dragged her broken suitcase off down the street. No music swelled. No convenient rain fell. Some exits only deserve traffic noise. Weeks later, Rosalind's restaurant reopened under entirely new management, hollowed out by fines, inspections, and cancellations. Desmond insisted we drive past it once just to see. A chalkboard sat by the entrance. Tonight's special, warm soup, honest staff, no hidden couples in storage. I laughed so hard I had to wipe my eyes. Walking home alone that night, the feed appeared one final time. Faint now, almost shy. The leading man and leading lady are destined. The sentence broke apart mid-line. Letters scattered like static. Then one clean line settled where it had been. Error. Background character role, not found. I stood under a street lamp and smiled properly, for myself this time. They'd called me the background character because I was supposed to walk quietly away from that door. Instead, I sat down. I ordered dinner. I called my witnesses, and I let the two of them freeze inside the very story they'd written for themselves.